What's up, John Colo with DiscountJuicers.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, and in this episode we're going to compare two Omega juicers. One is a brand new juicer that just came out earlier this year, and the other one we have actually been selling at Discount Juicers since 2013. So this is the tried and true model. This is the Omega 8007. The Omega 8008 is identical to the 8007, except that it is actually chrome-plated plastic instead of the silver finish. The other thing I want to mention is that Omega also sells this exact same machine as the Omega J8006 HDS. HD stands for heavy duty, S stands for silver, and all these models are HD or heavy duty because it has a heavy duty auger, regardless whether it says it in the model number or not. They also sell the 8008, which is once again the chrome plated model, as the Omega 8006 HDC. As far as I'm aware, and I don't know if this is true or not, but Omega has different model numbers for different sales channels. I've been proud to sell the Omega 8007 since 2013, and it is a solid, reliable model. They have made a few minor adjustments and improvements over the years until you have the machine that you see here today that has a few differences than the original video I made, back in 2013 when it originally came out. Okay. On to the new model. So the new model came out in 2020. This is known as the Omega NC1000 Premium Juicer. Very important. And I've asked Omega, what makes it premium? And they said, oh, it's the new model, John. It's premium. I'm like, all right. And it does look nicer. I mean, if you had to choose which juicer to buy based on the looks alone, right? I would actually choose this one. This one looks a lot more sexy. Although it does and will take up more counter space, it has a much more easy to access on and off button on the top right here, whereas the on and off button on this machine is right down there in the back. Although this also has a clear feed chute, which actually looks a lot nicer. This one has a black feed chute. And the other thing, that if you live in an apartment in New York City, you're crammed in, don't have a lot of space, well then you might want to get this machine, because as you guys can see, this machine is significantly shorter than this guy. This guy is also long and deluxe. So maybe if you live in a mansion in Texas, this is a better machine because it's going to fit in a place and not going to look all compact. And honestly, I do like the styling on the new NC1000 over the 8007. Now, both these machines have the Omega 15-year warranty, which is the longest warranty in the juicer industry. I do encourage you guys to get a juicer with a long warranty, because that is your assurance that you are buying a quality product that will last a long time, that you'll actually be juicing with for the next, in this case, 15 years, due to manufacturer defects, right? This is critically important to me. I got into juicing for my life to improve my health, and it has changed my life. And I'm confident that it can change your life too, like I hear from many different customers that I've sold juicers to, whether they're losing weight and keeping it off, whether they're, helping to reverse their disease by flooding their bodies with some of the most important vitamins, minerals, trace minerals, and phytonutrients and micronutrients with the juicers. Juicing works, in my opinion. It's the one thing that everybody, I believe, should be doing on a daily basis. Maybe not live on juices, but at least have one juice in the morning. I like to drink my juice in the morning before I eat anything. And if you guys have watched Anthony William or learned about Anthony William, the medical medium, he talks about just juicing celery every day. And actually he recommends an Omega juicer, the MM900, which is a special medical medium version. I'll post a link down below to the video on that. But basically what I'll tell you honestly is that this machine pretty much is the same as the MM900. It's also $40 less and does a lot more, although it will not make as much yield on the celery. But I personally believe that to be a good thing, because the MM900 does end up causing the juice to heat up more due to more pulp restriction, and that's how it actually gets its yield. It also tends to oxidize the juice a little bit more, and I'm concerned personally about oxidative damage to the juices that's destroying some of the phytonutrients in there. The other thing I want to share with you guys about Omega compared to other inexpensive juicers you guys can buy is that they have a US-based support team based in Pennsylvania and in Florida, depending on when you call and who you get. They're there to help you, and they stock all the different parts, provided they're not out of stock, for these machines that they could ship you should there be some parts breakage or you need to order a spare. Many of the inexpensive juicers you may find, they don't stock parts, and basically they're throwaway juicers. I'll post a link down below to a video I made with a popular juicer available called A Cook, and I compared that actually to the Omega 8007, and you could really see the differences. I mean, it made at least a cup more juicing the same exact results. So it's good to just get the right machine the first time, in my personal opinion. All right, so on with this comparison video. Basically these machines, they look a little bit different, but here's the honest truth: they function the same way. So the question for you guys is, why would you want to spend $100 or maybe even a little more for the NC1000 over the Omega 8007, right? And if you, at the beginning of this video, I'll tell you guys my preference. I would choose the Omega 8007 because it is less money, and there are a few differences. And in my estimation, these machines should produce about the same yield. Of course, the NC1000, you're going to get a few things that's really nice, including, it looks nicer, I think. Also, you get a larger feed chute, a more convenient on and off switch. But other than that, the machines are functionally the same. So if you have more money to spend, you're rich, yeah, go for the upgraded premium model with a few extra things. The large feed chute does make it easier to use. On the other hand, if you're tight on money, get the 8007 because, the feed chute is a bit smaller. On something like celery, it's not going to affect it too much. But if you're juicing like a lot of apples or big fruits, you got to cut up into smaller pieces. That's where the NC1000 really shines. And that's the summary of this video. I'll prove everything I'm saying in the video right now, because we're going to go over these juicers side by side, compare them part by part, so you guys could learn the exact differences between them. And then at the end of this video, I'll actually be juicing even amounts of straight celery in both juicers, so you guys could see the results and the yield that each juicer makes. Alright, so I guess off with this comparison. So the first thing is, I talked about the difference in size, the warranty is the same, difference in the price, of course. And there are some differences in the parts. So, if you guys look, this funnel is clear, and actually I like this clear feed chute and funnel. This is actually more clear. This is kind of more of a smoke colored plastic. This funnel on the top is not removable, so that's actually kind of good. So there'll be no drips that kind of drip down. Whereas the funnel on this guy, it is removable and comes off, so it's easier to clean. Generally it fits on pretty tight, so you're not going to get too many drips out the side. Also, this is black, and actually this funnel is actually more functional than this funnel because it's actually nice and deep. Actually, this is probably the biggest and deepest funnel on any juicer, which actually I like a lot, actually. Let me go ahead and pull this guy off for you, since we can't take the funnel off. You guys can see the difference in the feed chute size. So this is a standard round circle. I think it's like 1.5 inches circular. So we could put this feed chute in front of this feed chute, and it's basically the same size, but then also this is like more of a stadium shape. So you have a lot, I think it's like 82% larger feed chute size when I did my calculations way back in the day. So this makes it a lot easier to use, so you don't have to pre-cut things as small, but of course it depends on what you're juicing. Produce such as celery and kale and collard greens do not need to be pre-cut other than to fit into the feed chute. On a vertical Omega juicer, you do have to pre-cut things. I recommend into 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch pieces for best results, or the machine will jam when juicing things like celery, ginger, kale, collards, Swiss chard, and other leafy green vegetables. So that is really the benefit of this. And these are the machines I pull out when I have really hard fibrous leafy greens that I harvest from my garden, because this just easily handles the fibers. Okay, so yeah, the feed chute size is the #1 difference between these machines. Also the looks, and let's go ahead and start taking off the parts, but I want to explain how these machines work for those of you guys that don't know. Basically what happens is you put the produce in the machine, you push it with the pusher, so of course you're going to have a different kind of pusher for each machine. The pushers kind of denote the size of the feed chute. So you guys can see the feed chute on the 8007 is much smaller. It has this little pusher with like some silicone gasketing, which kind of helps squeegee things down in, whereas the NC1000 does not. It just has a standard pusher. I personally like the pusher on the 8007 because you actually have this nice handle on it, whereas the pusher on the NC1000 does not come up as much. It's a little bit, hard to grasp onto. Kind of like, I guess you would hold it like this. I don't know if you could hold it like this. But this one you could kind of hold like this, and it's just a lot easier to use. So yeah, I have to give the thumbs up to the 8007 on that. Anyways, you put the produce in there and it runs into this auger, which is kind of like an old-fashioned meat grinder. And as this auger is spinning and turning, it actually runs the produce down and crushes and squeezes it and compresses it more until it goes against the initial crush. Some juice is released in this first stage screen, which is actually stainless steel. On other Omega models, it may be plastic, like the NC800 and NC900 models. The then produce is run down this auger as it gets ground up even further. And as it's ground up in a little, into pulp, and the juice is released. That then comes out this juicing screen, and then the dry pulp comes out the end here. There is a little silicone flap right here that goes between the auger and the screen to help keep, the wet stuff behind and make it come through the screen. Okay. Assembly on both these guys are pretty much the same. I guess I'll take these apart now so we can go over each part by part for you guys. So the first is the juicer body. So these juicer bodies, the outlet port is the same. If we line these up, they basically look identical for the most part, except for the feed chute that is different on each one. Of course, this feed chute is removable and it's the smaller entry size hole. But other than that, these look pretty much identical for the most part. A similar plastic. They also both have a little yellow silicone gasket at the back to prevent, any kind of juice from going into the juicer. To assemble this machine, both these have a little lever. It says close and open. You want to put it always to the open. You put the drum, this is called the drum, and you put it to close. Same thing on this side. You put this guy in there. It's on open. Put it in. You slide it to close. Now, one of the things I do want to mention about the Omega NC1000 is on the first container that we got in and we sold, we had, I would say a high percentage of customers, that had defects with this locking ring on the NC1000 brake. As a matter of fact, my NC1000 locking ring broke when I was juicing it. Luckily, it didn't happen in a video, or I would have showed it on the video. But then I did make a video, I'll post a link down below, why I would not buy the NC1000 juicer right now. And I talk about this situation, this part breaking, and how to repair it and how to fix it. So I repair it in the video for you guys. Since that time, I've also had a few other customers, write in and say they've broken either their drum or, various parts of this machine here. Hopefully the Omega factory has gotten these issues worked out. If you don't want to have these issues, of course, then I'd recommend the Omega 8007 that has been out since 2013. And, while there is a random person that broke something on this, we rarely get any complaints on it because it is a tried and true product, and it's been out since 2013, so that's 7 years now, whereas this is a brand new model that they still may be working through some different situations. All right, next part that goes in the machines are the augers. So are the augers the same or are they different? So we'll put these down on the table and look at that. If we look at these closely, for all practical purposes, these augers look interchangeable. Of course, I'm going to keep the 8007 auger with the 8007 auger, but to my naked eye, these augers look pretty much the same to me. So to put the auger in, you're just going to put it in and slide it all the way back. Now, I do want to let you guys know that when you put this auger all the way in, there'll probably be about a 1/4 inch, between this end here and the motor body. It does not fit flush. Do not be concerned about that. Don't worry. The next thing we will compare is the juicing screen. These are the juicing screens for both juicers, and if I'm just holding these guys up, once again, they look completely identical, right? And so these parts are probably interchangeable between the two different machines. But I'm going to, once again, keep the one that came with the 8007 on the 8007. That just slides in. This first stage screen that's stainless steel is always pointed straight down, and you slide it back in there. Now the other thing that I will say is that both these machines include this guy right here, as well as some nozzles. This is known as the blank or the solid cone, whereas this is the juicing screen. So you guys can see the difference between these guys is this has holes that are stainless steel, and this basically just has a plastic and plastic. What this part allows you to do, the solid or the blank, allows you to basically use your Omega juicer for grinding. That's why the NC800 is called NC. It stands for Nutrition Center, because it is truly more than just a juicer. The 8007 doesn't have NC in front of it, but it has the same exact parts. You can do the same exact tasks. The most fun you will have with this part is doing things like frozen fruit sorbets out of bananas and berries is one of my favorite recipes. You could use many different kinds of frozen fruits, and basically it turns it into a frozen yogurt consistency. Make sure you click that subscribe button right down below, because coming up soon I'm going to be making a video and publishing a video with my nephew where actually we're using the Omega 8007 to make a sorbet, and he absolutely loved it. Alright. In addition, this part will allow you to grind things like roasted peanuts into peanut butter. If you put in raw almonds, for example, it'll turn it into an almond flour, because there's not enough oil content in the almonds to turn it into a butter to get it to congeal and stick together. So you will have to add some kind of oil or run the almonds, the flour, back through a number of times. That will help pull out and get more oil, so it'll start to stick together a little bit better, although it will never come out like the almond butter you buy at the store. In addition, this can be used to mince up fresh herbs, such as garlic and onions. I've used this to make a salsa by just putting all the ingredients through the juicer and grinding it up. I've used this attachment to make a ground up salad. Sometimes I don't feel like chewing my salad up, and instead of putting it in the blender that occurs at high speeds, I'll just put it through the juicer that basically will just grind up everything into a mush, and then I can eat it. This might be good if you don't have teeth and can't digest things as well. And then also you can extrude pasta with this machine, so you'd actually have to make the pasta dough. You put this attachment in, and they have different nozzles that then will extrude the pasta like shapes. Okay. Also, both these machines come with the same basic accessories. They come with a collection cup and a juice catch cup for the pulp and the juice, as well as a cleaning brush, and of course it comes with instructions as well. So once again, this part will just go in pretty much the same way. Instead of the juicing screen, we will not be using it today, because we'll actually be juicing. So we're going to go ahead and put this part in there. Slides back in. Next part, functionally are the same, although they look a little bit different. Once again, this is the very part that I've had challenge with some of my customers that I sold NC1000s to. Not every customer has this issue, so I think they might have had a bad run of parts over at the factory where it's made. Both these machines are made in China. So this is basically two different parts. You have the a drum cap here. This is called the drum cap. And then this is the outlet adjusting knob. And then over on the 8007, once again, you have that drum cap, and then you have that outlet adjusting knob here. So if we look at these guys, both these parts pretty much look similar. They have a similar function, similar locking. Let's see if I could even put the part here, which does fit on, although it might not be fitting perfectly, so I do not recommend swapping parts. This goes on a little bit looser, so maybe there's a little bit of different tolerances in there. But for the most part, these parts function the same. I would definitely say that this is a more durable part. I've seen pictures of my customers where this part actually separated into two. So now I'm going to show you guys how these specific parts work. On the drum cap, which we will now put on, you basically it has an open and close. You're going to put this on, slide it in, and turn it to close. And on this little cap, there'll be a couple different numbers, and actually it's like a line, so it's like Roman numerals, like number 1, number 2, and number 3, and then like a big blocky square. And on this piece here, there's like a little line. So number 1, you take the line and you put it into the open square, you slide that back in, and then you can put this on. So when it's at the open square or 0, you can actually pull it off. When you put it on, you can turn the line that's on the outlet adjusting knob to line up with the 1 over here on the drum cap, and that puts the least amount of back pressure when you're juicing. So this is if you're juicing something like straight fruits or mostly fruits, because if the pulp starts to back up inside the feed chute, there's too much back pressure. This cap is here to allow you to get the maximum yield when juicing. So you always want to set it on the highest number instead of the lowest. You can then turn this so this line on the outlet adjusting knob goes between the 1 and the 2, so then that theoretically that's 1.5. You could then set it on the 2, and then normally you will crank this down to 3 when juicing vegetable heavy items, whether that's leafy greens or whether that's root vegetables, or if you're juicing like 60% root vegetables with 40% fruits, I would also put it on 3. It's very important to rotate ingredients as you're feeding them into the juicer for it to work the best. I'll post a link down below to a video I made on how to use the Omega NC1000 juicer. And the same tips would apply to the NC1000, which is actually the premium version of the NC800, or the Omega 8007, which is another horizontal auger juicer, since they all basically work the same. Now on the 8007, it's a little more clear to see. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's actually these white little arrows, right? So you, once again, put this drum cap on, and then on this guy, there's the white arrows, and on this you have some different markings. So you have some circles on there, and then you have like a little swoosh thing, or a little, maybe we could call it segments or triangles. And the segments, you know, is basically the circle or the dot is a 0. So you're going to take the circle and dot and line that up with the little arrow on top that goes in. And then you could start turning this to the segments. The first segment, once again, would be 1. The second segment would be 2. Third segment is 3. Fourth segment is 4. And the fifth segment is 5. Once again, you're always going to crank this in to the number 5 to juice most things like vegetables. If you're juicing fruits and it's backing up, then you're going to turn this to like progressively turn it lower to put less back pressure. Maybe even have it on 1, and in some cases just remove it altogether. So for me, which one of these is more functional? Well, they both pretty much do the same thing. To me, this one's a little bit harder to use. Like the parts are a little bit tighter to turn, and it's not quite as clear or easy to use. I actually like the design of this, which is also tried and true parts that I've rarely seen break. And so this is a lot easier for me. This has a lot more knurls or little grip points to really move this on in and out easily, as well as this guy has a lot of more grip points. And to me, while this does look nicer, I will say it's not all about looks, it's about functionality. And this one's a little bit more harder to grab onto and turn, in my personal opinion. I guess the last thing I want to talk about is the motor of the unit. So both these machines are quite heavy. They both have, you know, built-in handles. I have to say that this handle is a bit easier to use than this handle here, which is actually kind of recessed. You got to put your hand in and then pull it up. You guys can see that if I turn the juicer, the handle in there. So yeah, if you're going to carry your juice around a lot, then the NC1000 is better. Now, I weighed out the 8007 in a recent video where I compared it to an inexpensive Chinese machine that had, like, I think it was overall about 5 pounds on the motor for the Chinese machine. And on this guy, I mean, just this base here is about 10 pounds, right? And that's a heavy-duty motor. That's due to all the copper windings, and that's how Omega can offer a 15-year warranty, because it's not some cheap Chinese, motor, right? These are heavy-duty motors that they've designed specifically for these machines. They have a 200-watt motor in there, and as far as I'm aware, both these machines are rated at 200 watts, and both machines appear to be about the same exact weight. I can't see that Omega would necessarily put a better motor in here when it's the same wattage. Maybe they did. Maybe that's why it's premium. I'm not exactly sure. But aside from if it's a better motor or not, performance is also very important. That we'll be checking in a second. Now, the thing about these models that I do like, unlike the Omega juicers that are made in Korea, on the bottom of the juicer, both these machines, we'll flip these guys up for you. You're going to see the little label on there. This machine actually has a reset button, as does this machine. The Omega machines made in Korea do not have the reset button. So should you, overload your juicer, it won't blow out anything. This little reset button will pop, so you will actually just have to turn the machine over and press it to reset it, and then you hopefully should be good to go. Of course, both these machines have, rubber feet on the bottom to prevent movement on the countertop. I would say that the Omega 8007 has a superior rubber foot because it's actually a lot bigger. Not quite suction cup, but it's a lot more stable because there's a lot more surface area to the foot than basically the kind of half curve on the NC1000, although the NC1000 does look a bit snazzier because it's more kind of like low rider style, close to the table, whereas the NC 8007 kind of rises up from the table a little bit, or from your work surface, okay? So actually I kind of like the 8007 because sometimes you spill juice, and because it's a bit higher, you're not going to be in fear of kind of messing anything up. With this machine, it's a bit shorter on the bottom. If you get juice underneath there, you might have to end up cleaning off some of the plastic. So yeah, pros and cons to each machine. So in the end, I mean, from what you guys see, what do you guys think? Post your comments down below. I try to look at comments a few days after the video is posted, but then unfortunately I have over 500 episodes of this channel and I can't always check comments on every single video. But what I'm seeing now, I mean, aside from the smaller feed chute on the 8007, I mean, this machine, in my opinion, is more functional and better. So anyways, let's do what really counts. Is let's go ahead and do a juice off in this video and juice identical amounts of celery in both juicers to see which one will remain king. So as you guys can see, got celery on the scales. Now to make sure we have a fair fight, we're going to go ahead and do a weigh-in to make sure we have exactly the same amounts of celery. Now we're going to do a weigh-in for you guys. Over on the 8007 side, we got the organic celery, and it's 1251 grams. Over on the NC1000 side, 1251 grams. We back up the camera. You guys could clearly see we have 1251 grams on both scales. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and move these scales out of the way since we have a fair comparison. Now the next thing I want to say before I get into actually juicing with these two machines is, if you guys enjoy my content, enjoy the videos I make, I would encourage you guys to support me and my work by making your purchase at discountjuicers.com. I'm like that small local organic farmer that's just trying to make a living against all those mega corporations out there that's producing mass industrial food for you guys. So I'd encourage you guys to support me and you allow me to continue to make my videos to show you guys the truth and compare the different juicers side by side, because nobody else in the world is doing it to the extent that I am, to share with you guys the truth about things. And I wish there was a lot more truth out there in the world, because talk is cheap in my opinion, but I prove everything I say by basically a lot of not too heavily edited videos at all, which some people claim to be too long, but they tell you the whole truth and nothing but the truth, with my commentary and personal opinions as well. And I'm here to help you guys. So here's the benefits of purchasing from Discount Juicers. Number one, the support you will get in the terms of videos, and I will personally answer your questions if you contact me through the support link down below in the description, so that you'll get the best answer for you in juicer selection. But more importantly, learn how to use them where I teach you guys this. I'll also be there to answer questions after your sale. If you go to some big box store, there's not going to be a resident juice expert on staff to answer your guys' questions. Let's not fool yourself. I've been juicing now for 25 years. I've run more produce through juicers than anybody else that sells juicers in the industry. I pretty much can guarantee that. So I have a lots of experience, and I'm here to help you guys out if you help me out and support me and make your purchase at discountjuicers.com. The next thing is we have a price match policy. We'll price match the delivered price on the identical item from other authorized retailers, although I would hope that you would buy the item at full price, because this better allows me to continue to buy my celery, to wash it, to prep it, to spend the time it takes to make one of these videos that takes hours aside from just the small amount of time you are actually watching. In addition, probably one of the most important, especially with Omega at this time due to COVID, I'm here to be your liaison to help you make sure you get your warranty service. There's lots of different reviews online in different places, and even some emails I've gotten from my customers says, John, I called Omega and they're not responding to me. Well, I have a special connection with Omega, and should you buy from me and should have some warranty issues and you attempt to contact Omega and they're not helpful, I will ensure that you are taken care of. Your warranty request is taken care of. Now, please be aware, Omega, due to COVID and other reasons, is having some inventory issues and out of stock parts on this stuff. but all my customers that I'm aware of have gotten helped and gotten their situation resolved, although sometimes it takes a bit more longer, so please be understanding. If you're not willing to put up with all that, go with a different brand juicer. TriBest and Kuvings both generally have better customer service from my experience than Omega. Not to say that you shouldn't buy Omega, but they're going through some growing challenges, and this pandemic that we're all going through has definitely changed the world for sure. All right, so I appreciate your support by making your purchase at discountjuicers.com, and I want to thank you guys in advance who will purchase from me, and thank you guys who have purchased from me and supported me in the past. All right, so I guess without further ado, let's get juicing. We're going to use the same collection bowls. I only like to use glass when I juice myself, so I'm just using some exactly the same identical collection cups, and I'll just be using this same bowl to catch the pulp off both machines. I expect the pulp to be pretty much the same dryness or wetness. Now, I could be timing how long it takes to juice in each juicer, which I normally do, but because these machines run at the same RPM, and although the feed chute is a little bit different, all the celery should work just basically unpre-cut at all into either juicer. I'm not going to time this because I could honestly tell you guys that the time that it takes to juice this recipe in both juicers will pretty much be the same. Now, if I'm juicing a lot of apples or fat beets that have to pre-cut, then the NC1000 will save you guys a little bit of time. And the other thing I want to mention is that both these machines are the easiest juicer in the world that I found to clean. I'm so glad after this juice off comparison, because each of these juicers will only take me like 80 to 90 seconds to clean, whereas some juice off comparisons, the juicer takes up to 5 minutes to clean, which I don't appreciate too much. All right, so I guess first we're going to go ahead and juice in the 8007. I'm going to move this bowl over, and we're just going to turn this on. Now, I do want to say that when you turn the machine on, some of the juicers will have some kind of movement in the top. It might look like this if you look very closely. That is completely normal. That's because these parts are not tight-fitting. If they were tight-fitting, you would turn it on and then it could snap, so there is always going to be a little bit of play. Every juicer model is a little bit different. Some will have a little bit more play than others, and be aware that this is completely normal, so don't freak out. I'll post a link down below to a video I made back with an original 8004 juicer that was experiencing this same issue. So to juice celery, you just take the celery, and this is stalk a little bit wide so it actually doesn't fit in the feed chute until we basically kind of curl it up a little bit, and then it'll fit in just fine. And we're just going to go ahead and push that in. We're going to make sure this is set to 5 all the way down, and we're just going to go ahead and push the celery in, letting it juice one bit at a time, and then finally we're going to go ahead and use the pusher. Now, don't be like one of my ex-girlfriends that used a knife or a fork or something to put in the juicer. They broke the machine. Only put the produce you're putting into the juicer or the pusher, to push items in the juicer. I also do not encourage you guys to run the juicer empty for any particular length of time, because the produce actually kind of acts as a kind of lubrication once the liquid and the solids start running through the juicer. This looks to be fairly uneventful, so what we're going to do to save you guys some time is we're going to go ahead and speed this part of the video up, and we're going to come back at you when I'm about done. Alright, so we're almost done juicing. I have a few extra pieces of celery, but unfortunately my collection cup is pretty much all the way full, and if I juice anymore, it's going to spill, so I'm going to go ahead and dump some of it into basically a measuring cup with a sieve, so you guys can see how much pulp is put into the juice. Let's see here. I usually like to tip this up a little bit, like backwards, and sometimes a bit forwards to get any kind of additional drips out. I'll move this out of the way very carefully. Oh my gosh, it's pretty full without spilling. And then we're going to go ahead and pour some of this off into the sieve here, and then I can continue to juice. Alright, so poured a little bit off. We're going to let that drain, and we're just going to go ahead and continue juicing the rest. So I do want to let you guys know the technique for juicing celery. You could just put it in there and mash it in as fast as you can. That could cause some issues. So what I recommend is you put it in, it'll basically take a chunk off, and you can see it took a chunk off, took a chunk off, took a chunk off, and let it take little chunks off instead of mashing it in there as fast as you can. This will increase your yield and improve the efficiency of the juicer. If you get auger wrap where the string is wrapping around the auger, that may be a sign you're kind of trying to push things in too fast. In some cases, you can just put the item in there and let the machine accept it on its own. It's literally auto feeding. It will not always do this, but sometimes it will. And so that's really the best way to feed items into the Omega juicer there. Just drop it in and let the machine work at its own time and pace. As you guys can see, we're out of produce over here, and we're pretty much done juicing. So when you're done putting the last item in the juicer, you're going to want to let the machine run a little bit because it's still dripping. And then of course when you're done, I like to always, you know, tip the juicer up or back, because the juice is coming out here and there's always a little bit sitting in here. And then also you can kind of tip it up a little bit, which might help a little bit. And there goes my pusher. All right. Once I got that out of the way, then I'm going to go ahead and put that in place. And then I'm just going to go ahead and pour this through my sieve. And we're going to go ahead and get a nice strain juice so we can actually see the exact results that we got. So it looks like we almost made about 32 fluid ounces. And that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and put this to the side now. And let's go ahead, move this over, and now we're going to juice in the Omega NC1000. I don't really expect this to be too much different because it pretty much works the same exact way. Once again, take a celery and let it just take off and chew a little bit up and pull it out, and you can see it's doing a fairly good job at chopping it. If I just took this pusher and mashed it in as hard and fast as I can, you may overload the juicer and it may cause you guys some issues. So I want you guys to take your time. These are slow juicers. Both these machines run at a low and slow 80 revolutions per minute. That's going to do minimum, you know, oxidative damage to the produce, you know, unlike the high speed machines that I'm not a super huge fan of. This is working pretty much like the 8007, so to save you guys some time, we're going to come back at you when I'm about all done. Alright, so I'm just about done juicing in the Omega NC1000, and this is almost overflowing, but not quite, so I didn't have to switch this out like the other one, so that's actually a little bit interesting. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out, if it made more or less juice, but I'll have to be really careful when I pick this up in just a second. Once again, when you are done juicing, you want to let the machine run because it's still working the produce through the machine. The way you will know is if the pulp stops moving out of the outlet port here, then that's a good indicator that you are done juicing. It looks like it's pretty much stopped. We still got a few drips, but once again, we're going to go ahead and, you know, lift this guy up a little bit to tilt it back, and then we're going to go ahead and lift this guy forward, you know, to get a few more drips out. Then I like to basically move this a little bit forward. Let's not spill any. Whoa, it's a little bit full there. And let's go ahead and get another container so we can easily compare the juices once we use the sieve and strain it on out. Oh my gosh, I don't like picking stuff up when it's this full. And when you pour very slowly or leaks may occur. Alright, so there you have it. We got all this juice poured out. And now we're going to go ahead and shake this guy down. We're going to go ahead and shake this guy down a little bit. And put these guys right front and center for you guys so you guys can see the differences in yield. Now first, before I do this, I want to show you guys the amount of pulp that was collected in both juicers, you know. All slow juicers will put some percentage of pulp. You know, some items you juice will be a lot more pulpy than others. So for example, carrots will make more pulp generally than celery. Wheatgrass will make a lot less pulp in the juice than even the celery would. And something like apples, especially if they're soft, are going to make a lot more pulp in your juice. Generally fruits that have a softer texture make a lot more pulp. So if you guys look at this, you guys can see the differences in the pulp. And I think for fun, I want to weigh out the pulps. It looks like they made a pretty similar amount, but if I had to guess, I'd say the 8007 actually put a little bit more pulp in the juice. And so we're going to go ahead and weigh out the pulp here. That's 29 grams on the 8007. And then over on the NC1000, 14 grams of pulp actually. So wow, it actually put less pulp in the juice. So if you don't want pulp in your juice, then clearly the NC1000 in this particular test was more efficient. But let's check out the juice just by looking at it at the top of my, just off the top. Looks like the 8007 actually made more juice, which is actually quite interesting. All right, let's go ahead and give you guys a close-up on the juices over on the 8007 side. If you look very carefully, looks like we just got under 900 milliliters of juice. I'll call that probably like 890 milliliters of juice. Very little foam, but once again we juice first in there, so the foam is settled a little bit. Over on the NC1000, yeah, a little bit more foam. That's because we just juiced and it just came out of the juicer. The juice will basically turn back into juice because foam is aerated juice. And if you look at the yields on that, it looks like maybe it's like 810. So if we just kind of back up on both of them, you guys could see clearly, between 810 and 890, the 8007 remarkably made more juice. So as you guys just saw, the Omega 8007 actually produced more juice than the premium NC1000 model, which is actually quite interesting to me because they share the same exact juicing screen and auger, although the feed chute a little bit bigger. Also, this adjusting outlet knob thing may put a little bit more or less tension on the machine. I'm not exactly sure why the significant difference in yield. I mean, when I was weighing out the celery, I did 4 heads of celery, and I took 1 stalk from this celery head, put it in this side, 1 stalk from this side, and basically did the same thing. So the celery is about equivalent, although your results will always vary. If I did this test again, it might be even closer in like how much, each one yielded. Maybe the NC1000 would yield more. Not exactly sure, but for all practical purposes, I'm going to say these machines are pretty much identical. Although in this particular case, the 8007 made more. Maybe that's because of the smaller feed chute and, I don't know, the way it crushed up everything. But many times I also like to take a look at the pulp. So the pulp from the NC1000 is on this side of the bowl here, and if we lift this pulp up, I mean, you could still drip some celery out of there, by wringing it out. So you could put that pulp back through the machine a second time, which we will not be doing in this episode. It's still pretty wet, and if we take the 8007 pulp over on this side, wring it out, I mean, it's still pretty wet as well. So both these machines are fairly efficient at juicing the celery. I can't say one is way better than the other. They use the same exact juicing screen, same exact auger, although this part is a little bit different. So at the end of this video, I want to try the juices. I doubt the juices will taste any significant difference, although this one has been sitting out a little bit more because it was made first. But since we did use a sieve to strain out the juices, they should taste the same. Straight celery, I haven't had that in a while because I usually make mixed juices now. I did straight celery for a while, and I think it did help out a little bit, but then I want to switch things up. I mean, for all practical purposes, the juices taste exactly alike. I mean, they're made through the same extraction method at 80 RPMs. So in the end of this episode, I always declare a winner of the episode, and basically the winner to me in this episode is clear. I personally would buy the Omega 8007 at this time because it made a little more yield, but that's not the only reason, because next time I do this comparison test, it might make less yield, but basically these machines are basically on par, in my opinion. But the other reasons that are important to me are, number one, I'm thrifty, and this is like $100 or even a bit less than the NC1000. It still has that 15-year warranty that this machine does. Now, this does have a smaller feed chute, so that may be a concern to some. If you want the larger feed chute, a little bit more convenience, and you want it to look a lot nicer and in styling, you might want to get the Premium 1000, NC1000. Maybe it's premium because it's a premium design, and this is kind of like just an old-fashioned design. But I'm all about functionality, and in this test, I would clearly choose the 8007 because of its lower price point. You got the same Omega quality. These machines are actually made in the same exact factory. But the other thing that's very important to me is durability, and this machine has been out since 2013. They've had 7 years to modify and adjust and make it even better, whereas this machine just came out, and you know, in the first batch we had a lot of issues, although I think I am seeing that, you know, being significantly reduced now because I think they've got all the issues with it worked out, but I'm just not exactly sure. So that's pretty much it for the end of this episode. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Also be sure to share this in different medical medium forums if people want to juice celery so that they could learn my favorite Omega juicer for juicing celery. The thing I want to mention is the MM900 machine does not include that special blank plate that I showed you guys earlier, so you're losing a lot of functionality just for the added functionality of getting a little bit more yield in the celery. I'll also put a link down below to a video I made comparing the NC800 to the MM900, you know, and which one of those two I prefer more. Now, unfortunately, right now at this time when this video is being filmed, the NC800 is out of stock for another 2 months. Omega has been going through some stock shortages. We haven't run out of the Omega 8007 at this point. We have them in stock, although we have been having some outages with the all-new NC1000 since the demand is a bit higher because it is a newer model, and generally people think newer is better, but I'm all about, you know, functionality, and in this case, you know, 8007 for me wins the ticket for sure. Also, I encourage you guys to support me in my work making your purchase at discountjuicers.com. We sell both the NC1000 and 8007 in our store. Put a link down below in the description as well as the first comment so you guys can make your purchase from me. That will allow me to continue to make these educational videos to show you guys what happens when you juice the exact same amount of produce in each juicer so you guys can make the best decision for you. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss out on my new upcoming episodes. I come out every 5 to 7 days. You don't know where I show up or what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel. I often compare 2 different style juicers and show you guys how to use the juicers and tips and tricks that even the manufacturers will not, because I drink juice every day and I almost juice every day. I usually make things in big batches. Also, be sure to click the little bell so you get notified as my new videos come out. And finally, be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 500 episodes at this time on this YouTube channel, comparing and contrasting all the different major juicer styles, as well as talking about dehydrators and vacuum blenders that allow you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables that are the best foods on the entire planet. So with that, my name is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for our YouTube visitors.